73 years carrying this family on my shoulders. 73 years giving everything, and this is how they repay me. Mom, stay at the farm. Someone has to take care of the orchard, Cesar said this morning with that fake smile he inherited from his wife. Beatriz was standing there with her new red dress, looking at me as if I were just another employee. And her mother Eloisa, with those expensive sunglasses, checking her phone as if I didn't exist. It's only for a week, Mrs. Francisca. You understand, she murmured without lifting her eyes. Only for a week, as if planting and watering were just a game. As if these 73 years hadn't meant anything. I watched them climb into the car. The suitcases filled with the clothes I washed and ironed, the towels I folded, the shoes I cleaned, were heading to the coast to spend the money this land produces, while I stayed here under this burning sun, with my hands in the earth they think belongs to them. But then, when the dust from the car settled on the road, when the silence filled this empty house, the kitchen phone rang. A sound that cut through the air like a knife. It was the bank. Mrs. Francisca, we need to confirm some urgent transactions, said the voice on the other end. My heart stopped. Not out of fear, but something deeper, a suspicion that had been growing like weeds in my chest. What kind of transactions? I asked, although I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. Your son Cesar tried to make a transfer of $50,000 this morning, and there are also attempts to change ownership on several accounts. As you're the primary account holder, we need your authorization. $50,000. The money we had saved by selling the livestock last month, the money that was supposed to fix the roof, buy the medicines I needed, and ensure this farm kept producing. I don't authorize anything, I said with a voice I didn't even recognize. Block everything right now. I hung up the phone and stood there in this kitchen, where I had prepared thousands of meals for a family that saw me as an inconvenience. The yellow walls I had painted 10 years ago now seemed like mute witnesses to everything I had silently endured. That night, while watering the tomatoes and lettuces they would eat when they came back, my phone vibrated. It was Cesar. Mom, what happened with the cards? We can't withdraw a single penny or pay for anything. His voice sounded desperate, almost hysterical. I could hear Beatriz yelling in the background and Eloisa swearing in that elegant tone she uses when she thinks no one is listening. Mom, are you there? Answer. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of damp earth and the jasmine flowers I had planted 20 years ago when I still believed this family valued me. I'm here, Cesar. Calm down, calm down. We're stuck at this hotel. We can't even pay the bill. What did you do? What I did, as if protecting my own money were a crime, as if I had no right to decide what is rightfully mine. I did what I had to do, son. But Mom, it's an emergency. We need the money. An emergency? Your beach vacation is an emergency, but my medication for high blood pressure isn't? The leaking roof over my bed isn't? The expenses of the farm that supports this whole family? No, Cesar, the only emergency here is that I finally opened my eyes. I ended the conversation at that breaking point. I had worked my whole life for this family. I had sacrificed my dreams, my youth, my health. And now I discovered they had planned to take the last thing I had left. But there's something they don't know, something I discovered 3 days ago when Juana, my neighbor, came over for coffee and told me what she had heard in the village. Something that changes everything. This story is just beginning. 3 days ago, Juana came to visit me, like every afternoon. She always brought her favorite mug, the white ceramic one with flowers that I gave her last year. She sat in the rocking chair on the porch, the same one where my late husband used to read the newspaper. Francisca, she said with that soft voice she uses when she has something important to say. I need to tell you something I heard in the village. I was peeling oranges for juice, but something in her tone made me stop. The peels fell to the ground like little withered suns. What is it, Juana? She looked down the path as if afraid someone might hear us. Yesterday, I was at Don Tobias's notary. I had gone to renew the papers for my land, remember? And while I was waiting, I overheard Beatriz talking on the phone. My heart began to race. Beatriz at the notary. That couldn't be a coincidence. She was talking to someone about selling the farm. Francisca, she said they already had a buyer, that they just needed to convince you to sign some papers, that they were going to tell you it was to renew the insurance. The oranges rolled across the floor. My hands trembled like leaves in a storm. Are you sure about what you heard? As sure as I'm Juana Maria. And there's more. She also mentioned something about changing the bank accounts to Cesar's name. She said it was the most convenient thing for someone your age. Then, Francisca, I heard something that chilled my blood. She said that after the sale, they were going to take you to a nursing home in the capital. They had already set aside the money to pay for it. A nursing home, as if I were an old piece of furniture no longer useful, as if these 73 years of life didn't mean anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake in bed, staring at the ceiling that leaked when it rained, thinking about every strange conversation from the past months. The times Beatriz and Eloisa went silent when I entered the living room, the whispered phone calls, the papers they quickly put away when I got too close. I remembered when Beatriz came 6 months ago with that green folder, insisting that I sign some insurance documents. I had signed without reading, trusting them like a fool. What was in those papers? Now everything made sense. Cesar's insistence that I go to the bank to update my details, the constant pressure to give them power over my accounts in case something happened to me. Eloisa's frequent visits, which used to be ignored but now came with bought cakes and fake smiles. I woke up before dawn and walked through the whole farm. I touched every tree I had planted, the avocados I planted when Cesar was 10, the mangoes that grew alongside him, the garden where I taught my granddaughter to recognize plants before Beatriz decided it was too dangerous to bring her here. This land has my fingerprints in every meter. My sweat watered every furrow. My tears nourished every seed, and they wanted to take it from me like a child taking a toy from another child. The next day, early in the morning, I walked to Juana's house. Her chickens clucked in the yard, and the smell of burning wood wafted from her chimney. I needed to think. I needed a place where I could feel safe. Her little kitchen always smelled of cinnamon and freshly brewed coffee. Juana, I think I need to do something before it's too late. She served me coffee in that floral mug and sat across from me. Her honey-colored eyes looked at me with that understanding only years of true friendship could bring. What do you need, Francisca? I need to go to the bank today and also to the lawyer. But before that, I need you to help me go through all the papers I've signed recently. We returned to my house and sat at the dining table. I pulled out all the folders, all the documents I had kept without fully understanding. Juana has better sight than I do and knows how to read the fine print. Francisca, she said after an hour of reviewing, her voice trembling, these papers you signed last month give Cesar power to sell properties in your name. My world swayed. I had signed my own death sentence without knowing it. And this one, she continued, this one gives him full access to all your bank accounts. Francisca, with these papers, they can do whatever they want with you. I cried for the first time in years. I cried like a child. I cried for my naivety, for my blind trust, for having raised a son capable of betraying me like this. But the tears dried quickly. In their place came something I hadn't felt in a long time. Rage, a clean, clear rage that filled me with an energy I thought I had lost. We went to the bank together. There, they explained everything Cesar had tried to do over the last 2 months. Loan applications using the farm as collateral, attempts to change the authorized signatures, requests to get copies of all my account statements. Mrs. Francisca, said the bank manager, a young woman with a concerned voice. Luckily, you gave us specific instructions years ago not to authorize anything without your physical presence. Your son seemed very upset when we told him we needed to speak with you first. He even brought a lawyer last week, insisting that he had legal rights. Very upset. Of course, he was upset. His plans to steal from me were failing because of a detail he had forgotten. Years ago, when my husband passed away, I had been cautious. I had put those restrictions in place in case I ever lost my memory. What can I do to protect myself completely? I asked. Cancel all the powers you've granted, change all the passwords, set up new restrictions. And if you want my advice, Mrs. Francisca, do it today. We then went to see the lawyer, Donald Defonso, an older man who inspires trust the moment you meet him. His office was full of books and smelled of old wood and wisdom. Mrs. Francisca, what you're telling me is very serious, but it can be solved. These documents you signed can be revoked. You were under emotional pressure. You didn't have independent legal representation. He explained my rights. He showed me how to protect my assets, how to make sure no one could take what was rightfully mine. I signed new documents, changed all the authorizations, set up legal locks that neither Cesar, nor his wife, nor his mother could break. What if they try to force me to sign something? I asked. These documents protect you, Mrs. Francisca. No one can force you to do anything with your property. And if someone tries, that's called coercion, and it's a crime. Also, I've notified the bank and the notary. Any document they try to present with your signature will be directly verified with you. I returned home that afternoon, feeling different, as if I had woken up from a long, confusing sleep. The farm looked the same green mountains in the distance, the same infinite sky, the same trees I had planted with my own hands decades ago. But I was no longer the same woman who had left that morning. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt in control of my own life. That night, when Cesar called to inform me about the trip, I already knew exactly what I was going to do. I let them go. I let them believe they had won, that old Francisca would obediently stay home, taking care of the orchard like another employee. But while they packed their suitcases, I packed mine too, not to leave, but to stay, to plant my roots deeper than ever before. And when the bank called the next day, I was ready. The storm had just begun, but for the first time in a long time, I had the umbrella. Cesar's call woke me up the second day. His voice sounded different, higher-pitched, with that tone he used as a child when he knew he'd done something wrong. Mom, there's a problem. The cards aren't working. None of them. I sat up slowly in bed, feeling the morning sun entering through the window that faces the yard. The chickens were already clucking, asking for their food. Life continued its normal course, while theirs crumbled 300 kilometers away. What kind of problem, Cesar? We can't pay for anything. Not the hotel, not the food, not the gasoline. It's like all the accounts are locked. I heard Beatrice screaming in the background. Her voice was distorted by the phone, but I caught a few words. Your mother is useless, fix this. Mom, I need you to go to the bank right now. It must be a system error. A system error. As if I were so naive. It's not an error, Cesar. Silence. A long silence, filled with the sound of the waves in the background. They were on the beach under expensive umbrellas, while I was supposed to be sweating in the orchard. What do you mean it's not an error? I mean that I canceled all the cards. I blocked all the joint accounts. I withdrew all the authorizations you had. Another silence. This one heavier than the previous one. Mom, you can't do that. We depend on that money. We, as if we were partners, as if they had worked a single day on this farm to earn that money. Oh yes. And who do you think that money belongs to, Cesar? It's family money. You can't leave us stranded here. Family. That word they had been using to manipulate me for months. Family when they needed money. Family when they wanted me to sign papers, but not family when they planned to sell my house and send me to a nursing home. Cesar, come home. All of you, now. We can't come. We don't have money for gas. Then walk, or borrow money, or do whatever you have to do, but come home. I hung up before he could respond. My hands didn't tremble. This time, I felt strangely calm, like when the shock wears off after an accident, and you realize you're still alive. That morning, I worked the orchard like never before. I planted new cilantro and parsley seeds. I watered the tomatoes that were starting to ripen. I pulled up the weeds growing between the lettuces. Every movement was an affirmation. This land is mine. These plants are mine. This life is mine. Juana arrived around noon as always, but this time she didn't bring her floral mug. She brought a bag full of freshly made empanadas and a bottle of aguardiente. To celebrate, she said with a smile that wrinkled her whole face. Celebrate? What? That you finally found your courage, Francisca. We sat on the porch eating empanadas and taking small sips of the aguardiente that burned my throat in the best way. The midday sun fell on us like a blessing. Do you think I did the right thing, Juana? Child, the only thing you did wrong was take so long to do it. She then told me how, for months, she had seen me fade away, how I stopped smiling when I talked about Cesar, how my shoulders had slumped under the weight of always being available for everyone. Your late husband, may he rest in peace, once told me, Juana, if anything happens to me, make sure no one takes advantage of Francisca. She's too good for her own good. Those words hit me deep. My husband had seen something I had refused to see for years. The phone rang again at 3 p.m. This time it was Beatriz. Mother-in-law, we need to talk. Her voice had lost all the fake sweetness it always had. Now it sounded sharp, desperate. Talk. What's going on? Why did you do this with the accounts? What do you think, Beatriz? I don't know, that's why I'm asking you. We're stranded here. I stood up from the porch and walked into the kitchen. I needed to be moving for this conversation. You know what, Beatriz? I think you do know. I think you know exactly why I did what I did. I don't know what you're talking about. No, you don't know about the conversation at Don Tobias's notary? You don't know about papers to sell the farm? You don't know about plans to put me in a nursing home? There was total silence. Not even the sound of the waves in the background. Mother-in-law, she started, her voice trembling. Don't call me mother-in-law. Mother-in-laws are family, and you stopped being my family the day you decided to steal from me. It wasn't stealing, it was for your own good. A woman your age can't handle a property this big on her own. There it was. The truth, finally. A woman my age, as if 73 years were a disease, as if experience were a disability. And who decided that? You, your mother, my own son. We were all worried about you. Lies. You were worried about the money, about the property, about what you could get if I disappeared from the map. I heard her hand the phone to someone else. Francisca, let's be reasonable. You can't stay on this farm forever. You need help, you need care. Eloise's voice sounded condescending, as if explaining something to a foolish child. You know what I need, Eloisa? I need you and your daughter to stay away from my family. I need you to stop manipulating my son. And I need you to understand that this farm will be mine until the day I die. You're making a terrible mistake. Without us, you can't manage the business. You don't understand banks, taxes, or anything. There it was again. The same old story. The poor old woman who doesn't understand anything, the same woman who had managed this farm for 40 years, who had raised livestock, who had negotiated with buyers, who had paid taxes and managed employees long before Beatriz even knew how to write her name. You know what, Eloisa? You're right about one thing. Yes, I made a terrible mistake. But it wasn't today. It was 6 months ago when I trusted you. I hung up for the second time that day. This time I did tremble a little. Not out of fear, but from a strange energy that ran through my body, as if I had been asleep for years and was finally waking up fully. Juana was still on the porch, gently rocking in the chair and looking at the mountains. Everything okay? She asked without looking at me. Everything perfect. That night, I had dinner alone for the first time in months, but I didn't feel lonely. I made scrambled eggs with tomato and onion from my own garden. The silence in the house didn't weigh on me, it embraced me. After dinner, I went out to the yard and looked at the stars. I hadn't seen them this clearly in years. Maybe because I hadn't taken the time to look up in so long. Tomorrow, they would return, furious, desperate, probably with a new plan to convince me I had lost my mind. But for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted. They arrived at sunset on the third day, like a storm you see coming from far away. Cesar's car kicked up a cloud of dust on the road that took several minutes to settle. I was watering the garden plants, but I left the hose running and sat on the porch rocking chair to wait for them. They got out of the car like actors in a poorly rehearsed play. Cesar came first with that scolded child face he put on when his father caught him making mischief. Beatriz followed, wearing a wrinkled green dress, her hair messy from the trip, and finally, Eloisa, adjusting her sunglasses, even though the sun was already setting. None of them looked directly at me at first. They stood there, waiting for me to speak first, as if I owed them some kind of explanation. The silence stretched so long that even the cicadas stopped singing. Well, I said at last, without getting up from the rocking chair. Cesar was the first to walk toward the porch. His steps were heavy on the wooden planks his father had put down 15 years ago. Mom, we need to talk. Talk. He sat down on the step. That position he used as a child when he wanted me to forgive him for something. But now he was 42, and the tricks from childhood no longer worked on me. I don't understand what happened. Why did you do what you did? Seriously, you don't understand, Cesar? Beatrice then came closer, wearing those heels that had no place on a farm and made her walk like a duck. Mother-in-law, I think there was a misunderstanding. We never wanted to hurt you. I looked directly at her for the first time. Her eyes were swollen. She had probably cried during the trip, but they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of frustration for having lost a misunderstanding. That's what you call planning to sell my house behind my back? We just wanted what was best for you. Eloisa had stayed by the car, as if ready to flee at any moment, but her voice reached clearly to the porch. Francisca, a woman your age shouldn't be alone in such an isolated place. It's dangerous. I stood up from the rocking chair for the first time since they arrived. My legs felt solid, firm, as if they had regained a strength I had forgotten I had. Dangerous? Do you know what's dangerous, Eloisa? Trusting family who plans to steal from you, signing papers without reading because you believe your own son would never harm you. Cesar stood up too. In his eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. Fear that their plan had completely failed. Mom, the papers you signed were just to protect you, so that if something happened to you, we could help you, protect you. Protect me? Calling me crazy, telling people in the village that I'm losing my memory. The color drained from his face. He didn't know I had heard that conversation last week when they thought I was taking a nap. I never did that. Yes, you did. You told Don Tobias that I was starting with dementia, that I sometimes forgot things, that it was necessary for you to have legal control over my decisions. Beatrice took a step back. Her heels sank into the soft garden soil. Cesar, let's go. She's upset. I'm not going anywhere. She's my mom, and I'm going to fix this. Fix what exactly? I asked. My voice came out louder than I expected, filling the space between us. Fix this misunderstanding. Make you understand that everything we did was for you. I walked off the porch and stood in front of him. Cesar is tall, he always was, but in that moment, I felt bigger than him. You want me to understand? Fine. Explain to me then why you had a buyer for the farm. Explain to me why you already had money set aside for a nursing home. Explain to me why Beatrice was asking about apartment prices in the capital. Each word I said was like a blow. I saw them shrink, searching for excuses they no longer had. Mom, we didn't. No more lies. I've heard enough lies. Finally, Eloisa approached, walking with that false elegance she uses when she wants to impress. Nobody was going to send her away. The home we chose is very nice. It has gardens and activities. There was the full confession. She wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. A home with gardens and activities. And when did anyone ask me if I wanted gardens and activities? Cesar ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Because we knew you'd say no. You're too stubborn to accept help. Help. Selling my house is help? Stealing my savings is help? We weren't stealing anything. The money was going to be used to take care of you. Lies. The money was going to be used so you could live comfortably while I rotted in a nursing home. Beatrice started crying again. Those manipulative tears she used every time things didn't go as she wanted. Mother-in-law, please, we're family, we can fix this. Family, you call this family? I walked to the garden and cut a white rose from the bush I planted when my granddaughter was born. I held it in my hands, feeling the soft thorns against my fingers. Do you know what family really is? Family is Juana, who warned me of your plans. Family is Donald Afonso, who helped me protect my rights without asking for anything in return. Family is this land that has supported me for 40 years. But we're your blood, Cesar shouted, desperate. Blood doesn't mean anything if the heart is rotten. Eloisa then stepped forward with that fake smile she reserved for special occasions. Francisca, let's be practical. You need us more than you think. Who's going to take care of you when you get sick? Who's going to manage the farm? I'm going to take care of myself, like I've been doing for 73 years. And as for the business of the farm, I have news for you. I went back to the porch and took the papers I had signed that morning with Donald Afonso out of my purse. Yesterday, I signed a new will. Everything I have is going to a foundation that helps abused women. Not a penny, not a meter of land, is going to you. The silence that followed was different from all the others. It was the silence of defeat, of ruined plans, of dreams of easy money evaporating like dew in the morning. Cesar sat down on the step again, but this time not like a child asking for forgiveness. He sat like a man who finally understood the consequences of his actions. Mom, you can't do that. I'm your only son. Being my only son gives you rights, Cesar, but it also gives you obligations. And you chose to betray me instead of taking care of me. Beatrice had stopped crying. Now she looked at me with pure rage, finally showing her true face. She's crazy, completely crazy. Cesar, do something. What do you want me to do? I don't know, but you can't let her take everything from us. No one is taking anything from you, I said calmly. You're simply losing something that was never yours. The sun had completely set. The first stars were starting to appear in the violet sky. It was time for them to leave. Go ahead, I said. This house is no longer your home. Cesar stayed there staring at me as if he hadn't understood the words, as if it were impossible that his mother, the woman who had cleaned his scraped knees and made his favorite meals for 40 years, was telling him to leave. Mom, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Beatrice then approached with that desperation of a trapped animal that made her look ugly despite all her makeup. Mother-in-law, think about it. Without us, you have no one. What will you do when you get sick? When you need help? I'll do the same thing I've always done, solve my problems alone. But you're 73 and I'm 35, but you act like you're 5. Age is no excuse for being useless, Beatrice. Eloisa had already gotten into the car, probably calculating that this battle was lost, but she yelled from the window. Francisca, this isn't going to end like this. We have legal rights. The papers you signed give us power. Those papers? I took the folder I had brought to the lawyer out of my purse. Are you talking about these papers that have already been annulled? Or these others that show how you pressured me to sign without legal representation? Her face crumpled. Even from a distance, I could see how reality hit her like a hammer. That's impossible. Those documents are valid. They were valid until Donald Defonso proved there was emotional coercion. Turns out the law protects seniors from abusive children. Who would have thought? Cesar jumped to his feet so fast that the planks on the step creaked. We're not abusive. Everything we did was for your good. For my good, Cesar? Look around. Look at this farm I built with my own hands. Look at this house where I raised you. Do you really think I don't know what's good for me? I walked to the garden where my roses were, the same ones I had planted when he was little, and wondered why the flowers had thorns. To protect themselves from those who want to hurt them, I had explained then. I never thought that one day he would be one of those threats. Look, Cesar. Do you see these roses? I planted them 20 years ago. I've taken care of them, pruned them, protected them from pests. No one else knows how to care for them like I do. No one else knows how much water they need, when to fertilize them, how to protect them from the cold. I turned to him, holding the white rose I had cut. This farm is the same. I know how every inch of this land works. I know every tree, every animal, every problem that can arise. I've handled droughts, floods, pests, low prices, high prices. I've done it alone for years, especially after your father died. But Mom, no. Let me finish. In all these years, did you ever see me fail? Did a crop ever get lost because of me? Did we ever fail to pay the bills? Did this family ever go without? He couldn't answer because the answer was no. I had never failed. I had never let anything bad happen to this family. Then why did you decide that I couldn't take care of myself anymore? Why? Because Beatrice told me to. There it is. Beatrice told you. And since when does Beatrice know more about my life than I do? Beatrice stepped forward with clenched fists. I just wanted to help. Your son was worried about you. Lies. My son was worried about the money, and you were worried about getting a house without having to work to pay for it. That's not true. Then explain to me why, the day after signing the papers, you already had $50,000 set aside to buy an apartment in the city. Cesar's face turned white. He didn't know I had seen the messages on his phone when he left it on the table during lunch. How do you know that? Because I'm not blind, Cesar, nor deaf, nor stupid. I saw the messages with the real estate agent. I saw the plans for the apartment you wanted to buy with my money. Eloisa got out of the car again, but this time she looked like a wounded beast. It's all normal. Children always inherit from their parents. We were just advancing the process. Advancing? You mean, you were waiting for me to die? I mean, it was logical to plan for the future. The future, my future. Without asking me what I wanted for my future. I walked to the fence that separates my property from Juana's. In the distance, I could see the light from her kitchen. She was probably making dinner, unaware that the war that would define the rest of my life was unfolding here. Do you know what my future was in your plans? 3 meals a day in a communal dining room, a single bed in a room I'd share with a stranger. Scheduled activities like I was a 5-year-old child. Visits once a month if they had time. The home we chose is very good, Beatrice protested. You visited it. Well, we saw the photos on the internet. The photos on the internet were going to lock my husband's mother in a place they hadn't even seen in person. Cesar then approached with that lost child face that broke my heart, despite everything. Mom, forgive me. I know we made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can start over. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the temptation to forgive, to hug him like I used to when he was little and had nightmares, to tell him everything would be fine. But then I remembered the conversation I had overheard 3 nights ago when they thought I was sleeping. Cesar telling Beatrice it won't be long now. When she's in the home, we'll be able to do whatever we want with the farm. Start over as if nothing ever happened. Yes, exactly. We can forget all about this. Cesar, look me in the eyes. He did. In those eyes, I saw the boy he had been, but also the man he had become. A man capable of betraying his own mother for money. I can't forget, and even if I could, I don't want to. Why? Because what you did taught me something important. Family isn't just blood. Family is respect, it's love, it's protection. You took all 3 away from me. Beatrice started walking toward the car, dragging her feet across the ground. Cesar, let's go. She's not going to change her mind. I'm not leaving. She's my mother. Your mother already decided, and we can't stay here like beggars. Cesar looked at me one last time. In his eyes, there was something I had never seen before. The understanding that he had lost something forever. Not just the inheritance, not just the money. He had lost his mother. Really, there's no way to fix this. There was a way. Not betraying me. Mom. Go, please, before I say something I might regret. He stood there as if frozen, for what seemed like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, he walked to the car with slow steps, as if each one hurt him. Before getting in, he turned one last time. I love you, Mom. I loved you too, Cesar, once. The car started, kicking up dust again. I watched the taillights fade down the road until they became red dots in the dark. When they disappeared completely, I sat down on the porch step. For the first time in days, everything was silent, and for the first time in years, that silence felt like peace. I sat on the porch step until the stars filled the sky. The night air smelled of jasmine and damp earth. That scent has always calmed me, but tonight it tasted different. It tasted like freedom. Juana appeared on the path connecting our properties, walking slowly with a steaming cup in her hands. Do you mind if I sit with you? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Not at all. In fact, I need company. She settled on the step next to me and handed me the cup. Hot chocolate with cinnamon, exactly what my soul needed at that moment. I saw them leave, she said after a while. Everything okay? Everything perfect. We sat in silence, sharing the chocolate. Juana has that wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to just be present. Do you know what's the strangest thing? I finally said. I thought I'd feel sad. I thought I'd cry, that I'd regret it. And you don't feel that way? I feel free, as if they took a weight off my shoulders that I didn't even know I was carrying. Juana nodded slowly. My grandmother used to say that sometimes you have to prune the sick branches so the tree can grow healthy. That night, I slept better than I had in months. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m., worrying if I had closed the bank accounts properly. I didn't get up thinking about what excuse Beatrice would make to ask me for money. For the first time in a long time, my mind was at peace. The next morning, while making coffee, the phone rang. For a moment, I thought it would be Cesar, apologizing or trying to manipulate me again, but it was Donald Afonso. "Good morning, Mrs. Francisca. How are you feeling?" "Like new, Donald Afonso. And you?" "Very well. I'm calling because I wanted to confirm some details of the will we signed yesterday. Are you sure about your decisions?" "More sure than ever." "Perfect. I also wanted to inform you that your son came to my office this morning, very early. He wanted to know if there was any way to challenge the changes you made." I wasn't surprised. Cesar had always been persistent when he wanted something. "And what did you tell him?" I explained that the documents are perfectly legal and that you are in full control of your mental faculties. I also suggested that if he wanted to reconcile with you, he should come directly to speak to you, not through lawyers. And what did he say? He left without saying a word. After hanging up, I decided it was time to start my new life. I really couldn't stay lamenting the past. I had to build something new, something meaningful. I walked all over the farm, looking at it with new eyes. It was no longer just the property I inherited from my husband. It was no longer just the place where I raised my son. Now it was my future, my project, my legacy. The house needed repairs. The kitchen roof had leaks that we had ignored for months because we didn't have the money to fix it, according to Beatriz. But now, since I didn't have to support 3 adults who didn't work if I had the money, I called Don Lazaro, the town's foreman. "Mrs. Francisca, what a pleasure to hear from you. How can I help?" "Don Lazaro, I need you to come and check the house. I want to make all the repairs we've been postponing. All of them. Are you sure? This will be a big project. I have time and I have money. When can you come?" "I'll come tomorrow morning, if that's okay." Then I called the vet. I had wanted to buy more chickens and maybe some goats for months, but Eloisa always complained about the noise and the smell. "Dr. Benita, it's Francisca. Could you advise me on expanding my corral?" "Of course. What do you have in mind?" "I want to start a small farm, chickens, goats, maybe some pigs, something that gives me steady income but also keeps me busy." "I think it's an excellent idea. Your family agrees?" "My family is me, doctor, and I fully agree." That afternoon, Juana and I sat at the dining table making plans. She brought paper and a pencil, and I laid all my ideas on the table. "How about we start a small homemade food business?" suggested Juana. "You cook wonderfully, and I know how to make preserves and jams. Do you think it would work?" "There's no one in the village selling homemade food anymore. All the women work outside now. I'm sure there's a market for it." We started doing the numbers. With the savings I no longer had to share with Cesar and his family, I could invest in basic equipment for a small commercial kitchen, and we could sell at the Saturday market, ***, Juana added, or even do home delivery. For the first time in years, I felt excited about something. I had a project, a purpose, a reason to wake up every morning that wasn't just about surviving. That evening, while having dinner alone in the kitchen, I realized something. The house felt bigger, not emptier, bigger, as if I had reclaimed spaces I didn't know I had lost. The phone rang at 9 p.m. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Francisca." The voice was from a young woman, timid. "Yes, this is Francisca. Who am I speaking with?" I'm the wife of Jeremias, your neighbor, Dona Carmen's son. She gave me your number." Jeremias, the young man who studied business administration and now worked in the capital. "What do you need, dear?" "Dona Carmen told me you're thinking of starting a food business. I work in marketing, and I was wondering if you would need help." "What kind of help?" "Well, I could help with social media, design labels, promotion. I'd love to be part of a project like this." "And how much would you charge for that help?" "Nothing at first. If the business works, we could talk about a small partnership, but first, I just want to help you get off the ground." I hung up the phone with a huge smile on my face. Not only did I have a project, but I had a team. The next day, Don Lazaro arrived early with his measuring tape and notebook. We went through the entire house from the roof to the foundation. "Dona Francisca, this house is solid. It just needs care and maintenance." "How long would it take to make it look new?" "About 3 months of work every day, but it will be like a palace." "Do it." While Don Lazaro took measurements, I walked to the back of the property, where I had always wanted to build a small workshop. My late husband had dreamed of having his carpentry shop there, but we never found the time or money. Now I had both. I took my phone and dialed the number of the construction company. Good morning. I need a quote for a new construction. What type of construction? A carpentry workshop, and next to it, a small commercial kitchen. When do you need it? I'm not in a rush, but I want it to be perfect. For the first time in 73 years, I was building something just for me, without asking for permission, without having to justify expenses, without having to hear complaints about noise or mess. It was my money, my land, my decision, and it felt glorious. It took 6 months before I heard from Cesar again. 6 months in which my life completely changed, as if I had come out of a crisis and could finally fly. The house turned out beautifully. Don Lazaro hadn't exaggerated when he said it would look like a palace. New roofs, restored floors, walls painted soft yellow that made the entire house feel full of sunlight. The commercial kitchen worked perfectly, and the carpentry workshop was exactly as my husband would have dreamed. Juana and I had turned our homemade food project into a small empire. We sold tamales on Tuesdays, empanadas on Thursdays, and preserves every day. On weekends, the town market was filled with people who came specifically to buy our products. Dona Francisca, Don Tobias, the notary, said every time he passed by our booth, "You've rejuvenated 10 years." And it was true. I felt stronger, clearer, more alive than in a long time. I worked from 5 in the morning to 7 in the evening, but it was work that filled me with satisfaction instead of draining me. Jeremiah's girl, whose name was Carmen, like his mother-in-law, had been a blessing. She created a social media page that had thousands of followers. Abuela Francisca's Kitchen, she called it. And although I protested because I wasn't anyone's grandmother, the name stuck. We had hired 3 girls from the village to help us, young girls who needed work and learned quickly. The house, which had been so quiet for years, was now filled with laughter and conversations from early morning. We had also started a small program to help women in difficult situations. Women who, like me, had been manipulated or mistreated by their families. We taught them trades, gave them temporary work, helped them find legal advice. "It's like this house has been waiting all this time for you to wake it up," Carmen, the girl who helped us with marketing, told me one afternoon. She was right. The house had been asleep, waiting for me to have the courage to live my own life. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Cesar arrived. I was in the workshop sanding some boards to make a new shelf when I heard the car on the road, but this time he didn't come with anger or desperation. He came alone, walking slowly, like someone who comes to apologize. I saw him from the workshop window. He had lost weight. His clothes looked less cared for, and he had a few days' worth of beard that made him look older. He stood in the yard looking at all the changes, as if he couldn't believe it was the same house. I walked out of the workshop, wiping my hands on my apron. I didn't run to him, but I didn't hide either. "Hello, Mom." "Hello, Cesar." We stood there, separated by a few meters that felt like kilometers. "The house looks different. It's alive again." He nodded slowly, as if he understood the message behind my words. "Can I sit down?" "It's your decision." He sat on the porch step, in the same place he had sat last time, but now he looked small, defeated. "Mom, I came to apologize." I didn't respond. I had learned the power of silence. I know what we did was wrong. I know there's no excuse, but I want you to know that I've realized everything. That you were right, that Beatriz manipulated me, that I almost lost the most important person in my life out of greed. And Beatriz left 3 months ago. She took everything she could and left with a man she met in the city. I didn't feel satisfaction upon hearing that. I didn't feel pity either. It was just information. And Eloisa. She's in a nursing home. Her own son put her there when she ran out of money. The irony was perfect, but I didn't say anything. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know it's probably too late, but I wanted you to know what I've learned. That losing you made me realize what really matters in life." I sat in the rocking chair, but kept my distance. "What do you want, Cesar?" "Nothing. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to tell you that I love you, that I've always loved you, even though my actions said otherwise." And what have you been doing these months? Working. I work in construction now. It's hard, but it's honest. I sleep in a rented room, like in cheap inns. I'm trying to understand how I became so stupid. What do you have in mind? I want to start a small farm, chickens, goats, maybe some pigs, something that gives me steady income, but also keeps me busy. I think it's an excellent idea. Your family agrees? My family is me, doctor, and I fully agree. That afternoon, Juana and I sat at the dining table making plans. She brought paper and a pencil, and I laid all my ideas on the table. How about we start a small homemade food business, suggested Juana. You cook wonderfully, and I know how to make preserves and jams. Do you think it would work? There's no one in the village selling homemade food anymore. All the women work outside now. I'm sure there's a market for it. We started doing the numbers. With the savings I no longer had to share with Cesar and his family, I could invest in basic equipment for a small commercial kitchen, and we could sell at the Saturday market, Juana added, or even do home delivery. For the first time in years, I felt excited about something. I had a project, a purpose, a reason to wake up every morning that wasn't just about surviving. That evening, while having dinner alone in the kitchen, I realized something. The house felt bigger, not emptier, bigger, as if I had reclaimed spaces I didn't know I had lost. The phone rang at 9 p.m. It was a number I didn't recognize. Francisca. The voice was from a young woman, timid. Yes, this is Francisca. Who am I speaking with? I'm the wife of Jeremias, your neighbor, Dona Carmen's son. She gave me your number. Jeremias, the young man who studied business administration and now worked in the capital. What do you need, dear? Dona Carmen told me you're thinking of starting a food business. I work in marketing, and I was wondering if you would need help. What kind of help? Well, I could help with social media, design labels, promotion. I'd love to be part of a project like this. And how much would you charge for that help? Nothing at first. If the business works, we could talk about a small partnership, but first, I just want to help you get off the ground. I hung up the phone with a huge smile on my face. Not only did I have a project, but I had a team. The next day, Don Lázaro arrived early with his measuring tape and notebook. We went through the entire house from the roof to the foundation. Dona Francisca, this house is solid. It just needs care and maintenance. How long would it take to make it look new? About 3 months of work every day, but it will be like a palace. Do it. While Don Lázaro took measurements, I walked to the back of the property, where I had always wanted to build a small workshop. My late husband had dreamed of having his carpentry shop there, but we never found the time or money. Now I had both. I took my phone and dialed the number of the construction company. Good morning. I need a quote for a new construction. What type of construction? A carpentry workshop, and next to it, a small commercial kitchen. When do you need it? I'm not in a rush, but I want it to be perfect. For the first time in 73 years, I was building something just for me, without asking for permission, without having to justify expenses, without having to hear complaints about noise or mess. It was my money, my land, my decision, and it felt glorious. It took 6 months before I heard from Cesar again. 6 months in which my life completely changed, as if I had come out of a crisis and could finally fly. The house turned out beautifully. Don Lázaro hadn't exaggerated when he said it would look like a palace. New roofs, restored floors, walls painted soft yellow that made the entire house feel full of sunlight. The commercial kitchen worked perfectly, and the carpentry workshop was exactly as my husband would have dreamed. Juana and I had turned our homemade food project into a small empire. We sold tamales on Tuesdays, empanadas on Thursdays, and preserves every day. On weekends, the town market was filled with people who came specifically to buy our products. Dona Francisca, Don Tobias, the notary, said every time he passed by our booth, "You've rejuvenated 10 years." And it was true. I felt stronger, clearer, more alive than in a long time. I worked from 5 in the morning to 7 in the evening, but it was work that filled me with satisfaction instead of draining me. Jeremias's girl, whose name was Carmen, like his mother-in-law, had been a blessing. She created a social media page that had thousands of followers. Abuela Francisca's Kitchen, she called it. And although I protested because I wasn't anyone's grandmother, the name stuck. We had hired 3 girls from the village to help us, young girls who needed work and learned quickly. The house, which had been so quiet for years, was now filled with laughter and conversations from early morning. We had also started a small program to help women in difficult situations. Women who, like me, had been manipulated or mistreated by their families. We taught them trades, gave them temporary work, helped them find legal advice. It's like this house has been waiting all this time for you to wake it up, Carmen, the girl who helped us with marketing, told me one afternoon. She was right. The house had been asleep, waiting for me to have the courage to live my own life. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Cesar arrived. I was in the workshop sanding some boards to make a new shelf when I heard the car on the road, but this time he didn't come with anger or desperation. He came alone, walking slowly, like someone who comes to apologize. I saw him from the workshop window. He had lost weight. His clothes looked less cared for, and he had a few days' worth of beard that made him look older. He stood in the yard looking at all the changes, as if he couldn't believe it was the same house. I walked out of the workshop, wiping my hands on my apron. I didn't run to him, but I didn't hide either. "Hello, Mom." "Hello, Cesar." We stood there, separated by a few meters that felt like kilometers. "The house looks different. It's alive again." He nodded slowly, as if he understood the message behind my words. "Can I sit down?" "It's your decision." He sat on the porch step, in the same place he had sat last time, but now he looked small, defeated. "Mom, I came to apologize." I didn't respond. I had learned the power of silence. I know what we did was wrong. I know there's no excuse, but I want you to know that I've realized everything. That you were right, that Beatriz manipulated me, that I almost lost the most important person in my life out of greed. And Beatriz left 3 months ago. She took everything she could and left with a man she met in the city. I didn't feel satisfaction upon hearing that. I didn't feel pity either. It was just information. And Eloisa. She's in a nursing home. Her own son put her there when she ran out of money. The irony was perfect, but I didn't say anything. "Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know it's probably too late, but I wanted you to know what I've learned. That losing you made me realize what really matters in life." I sat in the rocking chair, but kept my distance. "What do you want, Cesar?" "Nothing. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to tell you that I love you, that I've always loved you, even though my actions said otherwise." "And what have you been doing these months?" "Working. I work in construction now. It's hard, but it's honest. I sleep in a rented room, like in cheap inns. I'm trying to understand how I became so stupid." "What do you think of him?" I asked one afternoon. "He's trying to be different, but only time will tell if it's real or just an act." "How can I tell the difference?" "The men who truly change don't make a show of it, they just change." She was right. Cesar didn't talk much during his visits. He didn't try to impress me with grand gestures or dramatic promises. He just worked, ate what I offered, and left. One day, he arrived with bruises on his hands. "What happened to you?" "A fight at work. A coworker was bothering a new girl, saying ugly things to her. I told him to stop, and he told me to mind my own business. I told him that respecting women is my business." He hadn't said those words to impress me. He said them because they were the truth. And for the first time in months, I felt something like pride for my son. But the real change came months later, when he arrived with an older woman. "Francisca, I want to introduce you to Dona Elena. She's my boss at the construction site." Elena was a woman in her 60s, weathered by the sun and hard work, with intelligent eyes and strong hands. "Dona Francisca, your son has spoken a lot about you. I wanted to meet the woman who raised one of my best workers." Cesar turned red. He knew exactly what kind of things Elena had heard about him. "The pleasure is mine, ma'am," he said. "Will you stay for dinner?" Cesar looked at me, waiting for my answer. "He can stay if he wants, but not his family as a guest." "I understand." Juana left, but before she did, she winked at me. She knew she was giving me space to decide what to do. "Mom, do you think we could ever try to be a family again?" "I don't know, Cesar. Family isn't something that can be broken and glued back together like a vase. Once trust is broken, things never go back to the way they were. I know, but maybe it could be different, better. Better, like more honest, more respectful, more real. I looked at him for a long time. In his eyes, I didn't see the manipulative man who had tried to steal from me. I saw the boy he had been, but I also saw something new. Genuine humility. Do you know what you need to do if you want to rebuild something with me? What? You need to earn it, not with words, but with actions. You need to show me over months, maybe years, that you've really changed. How? By working honestly, living honestly, respecting my decisions even if you don't like them, treating me like a whole human being, not like an old woman who needs to be taken care of. And if you do all that, maybe one day we can be friends, but we'll never be the mother and son we were before. That relationship died the day you decided to betray me. He remained silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded. I understand and accept those conditions. Good, then you can start by staying for dinner, but after that you leave. And if you want to come back, let me know first. Thank you, Mom. Don't call me Mom yet. Call me Francisca. You need to earn the right to call me Mom again. That night, we ate in silence, the three of us. Cesar ate slowly, like it was the first homemade meal he'd had in months. It probably was. When he finished, he helped me wash the dishes without me asking. Juana had gone home, leaving us alone. The meal was delicious, he said. Thank you. Can I ask you something? Ask. Are you happy? The question caught me off guard. No one had asked me that in years. Yes, I said after thinking for a moment. For the first time in a long time. I'm happy. He left that night without promising to return, without asking for anything else. He simply left. And for the first time in months, the goodbye didn't feel like a war. Cesar came back 3 weeks later. This time, he called before coming, just like I had asked. Francisca, can I visit you on Sunday? I wanted to help with something if you need. Help with what? With whatever you need. I know you have the food business. Maybe you need help carrying heavy things or fixing something. His offer surprised me. For years, Cesar had avoided any physical work on the farm. He always had an excuse, saying his back hurt, that he had important things to do, that such work was for employees. Come Sunday at 8 a.m. There are some things I need to fix. He arrived on time, dressed in work clothes and old boots. He looked different, thinner, but also stronger, like physical work had toughened him in a good way. What do you need me to do? The goat pen needs repair. Some boards are loose. He worked for 4 hours without complaining. I saw him through the kitchen window while I prepared dough for empanadas. He moved differently, more carefully, with more respect for the tools and materials. He wasn't the same man who used to consider this type of work beneath him. At noon, I brought him a glass of cold water and a plate of food. Thank you, he said, sitting down to eat on the ground, leaning against a tree. Why are you doing this, Cesar? Fixing the pen? No, all of this. Coming, working, acting like you're another person. He stayed chewing slowly before answering. Because when I lost you, I realized I lost the only person who really knew me, the only one who loved me unconditionally. I loved you unconditionally until you put conditions on me. I know. And I also realized something else. What? That I never really knew you. I thought you were just my mom, the woman who took care of me, but you're so much more than that. He looked around, seeing the thriving business, the improvements to the house, the new energy in everything. You're a businesswoman, you're a leader, you're a woman who can build an incredible life from scratch. And I was so blind I couldn't see it. His words touched me, but I didn't let myself be carried away by emotion. And what do you want to do with that information? I want to really get to know you as the person you are, not the idea I had of you. That's going to take time. I have time. He finished the work and left without asking for anything else, without asking when he could come back, without suggesting we have dinner together, without trying to force an intimacy that no longer existed. Over the following months, Cesar came every 2 weeks. He always called beforehand, always came to work. He fixed the chicken coop roof, painted the fence, helped build a new storage area for the business. Juana watched him with that prudence of an older woman who has seen many broken promises. Yesterday, a 25-year-old girl arrived with 2 small children. Her husband had threatened to take the children away from her if she left him. The same threat Beatrice had used with me, but with my own resources. "Can I really stay here without paying anything?" she asked, her eyes full of fear. "You not only can stay, but you're going to learn how to do something you enjoy, and that will give you financial independence. And when you're ready to leave, we'll help you find your own place." "Why are you doing this for me? You don't even know me." "Because every woman deserves the chance to live with dignity. And because someone taught me that sometimes you need to be very brave to save your own life." That morning, while I was preparing dough for the tamales, the phone rang. It was Donald Defonso. "Dona Francisca, I'm calling to give you some news." "Good or bad?" "Very good. Your foundation just received an anonymous donation of $50,000. I sat in the nearest chair. $50,000. The same amount Cesar had tried to steal years ago. Do you know who did it? I can't say, but I have my suspicions. That afternoon, when Cesar arrived from work, I confronted him. "It was you who donated the money to the foundation." He turned red like when he was a child, and I caught him doing something he shouldn't have. "How did you know?" "Because it's exactly $50,000, the same amount you tried to steal. It's not all the money I owe you, but it's a start." "Cesar, that money was for you too. You're my partner." "No, Mom, that money was my way of closing a circle, of turning something bad into something good." I got up and hugged him. A real hug, deep, full of love that had been stored for years of pain. "I'm proud of you. And I'm proud to be your son." That afternoon, while the sun set over the mountains that had witnessed my entire life, I sat in the rocking chair in the corridor to reflect on these last few years. The house was full of life again. Laughter could be heard from the kitchen where the girls were finishing cleaning up after the workday. Voices came from the shelter where the women we were helping were reading stories to their children. The sound of the goats and chickens in the pen that Cesar had repaired with his own hands filled the air. Juana came out of the kitchen with 2 cups of hot chocolate, like she did every night. "What are you thinking?" she asked. That my husband was right. That he once told me that women are like trees. We can survive the harshest droughts, but when the rains come, we bloom more beautifully than before. He was a wise man. Yes, and I think he would have liked to see what I've become. Cesar arrived in his truck, tired but smiling. Now he lives in a small house he bought in town, but he comes to dinner with us almost every night. "How was your day?" "Perfect. We delivered everything on time. The clients were happy, and Dona Elena offered me a bigger contract for next month. You'll only accept it if you're okay with it. I don't want it to affect our business." That's the difference. Now you ask me. Now you respect my opinions. Now you understand we're partners, not boss and employee. I'll accept it. The business can run on its own for a few weeks. Thank you, Mom. We had dinner together, talking about plans to expand the shelter and maybe open a 3rd branch. Carmen wants us to explore the possibility of selling our products online to the whole country. "Can you imagine, Francisca?" said Juana. "Women all over Mexico eating your tamales." "Our tamales," I corrected her. "We built this together." After dinner, Cesar went to his house and Juana retired to her room. I stayed a little longer in the corridor, watching the stars shine brighter than ever. I thought about the woman I was 5 years ago. A woman who had become invisible in her own home. A woman who had lost her voice, strength, and dignity. A woman who was so used to giving that she had forgotten she also had the right to receive. That woman died the day I decided to block the bank accounts. She died when I chose to defend myself instead of continuing to be a victim. She died when I understood that true love isn't about sacrificing your dignity for others, but respecting your own and teaching others to respect it too. In her place, this woman was born, an entrepreneur, a leader, a protector of other women, the mother of a son who finally understands what respect means. The phone rang one last time before I went to sleep. It was Carmen, the manager. "Dona Francisca, sorry to bother you so late, but I wanted to give you some news." "What happened?" "A national magazine just called. They want to do an article about women entrepreneurs over 70. You're their first choice. An article about me. About you and everything you've built. They say your story is inspiring for thousands of women who feel trapped in their own lives." After hanging up, I walked to the garden where my roses were, the same ones I planted 20 years ago to teach Cesar about the thorns that protect beauty. I cut a white rose, the same variety I cut the night he left. But this time, I didn't cut it with pain, I cut it with gratitude. Gratitude for having had the courage to say enough. Gratitude for finding the strength to build a new life. Gratitude for learning that it's never too late to bloom. I looked up at the starry sky and whispered the words my husband told me in our last year together. Legacy isn't a monument, Francisca. It's a map that you leave for others to find their own way. I finally understood what he meant. My legacy isn't the businesses I built or the money I earned. My legacy is the women I helped find their strength. It's the son who learned to respect. It's the living proof that it's never too late to rescue your own life. I entered the house and turned off the lights one by one. Tomorrow will be another day full of work, projects, and women who need help and hope. And I'll be ready because, at last, I am who I always should have been. Francisca, simply Francisca. And that's more than enough.